for some Leo magic.
Come on.
Okay.
We need some Leo magic.
Leo magic. All right, so we are now in July. This is a turning point. So I just wanted to revisit where we're actually at right now in the natural year. So we have done pretty much seed stage for the year. We're now in transition to roots stage. This means that the focus is now shifting. We're getting more grounded with all of our wonderful creations that we started the year with. And it's kind of where the rubber hits the road, really, because we want to start to create solidity, foundation, consolidation of what we've done so far so that it can really pay off later in the year when we get to Capricorn, the fruit on the tree. So just bearing that in mind when we go through the cycle of Leo today and your intentions and actions. I also would love you to review your 12 cycle plan at the turning point throughout the year. We're at that turning point from seed to roots now. This is the time to really look at your 12 cycle intention, making sure you're ticking off your milestones as you go. And especially when we get to Virgo next cycle, that's really when we're going to do a reality check of your plan and go, okay, so we're halfway through the year now. Are we tracking according to our 12 cycle intention? Are we actually going to get there? Have we ticked off the milestones so far that are needed for the first half of the year? And what's needed for the second half of the year so you actually get to your goal? So you can review your 12 cycle intention now. Mine was to expand my reach, teach and share my soul work with aligned audiences. And some of my milestones there as well, creating a website, holding a retreat, delivering an online course. So these I need to review coming Virgo, but you just want to be really aligning your Leo intention with your 12 cycle intention. You might notice that your 12 cycle intention has a particular flavor. So mine, for example, is very much about teaching and sharing and creativity because I'm sharing my soul's work. So Leo is kind of a bit of a feature for me with this intention. So just be aware of how Leo features in relation to your 12 cycle intention. Cool. So exciting because eclipse season starts this cycle. So welcome to the craziness of eclipse season. Now, this month we have 2 eclipses, and if you recall, eclipses are like an opportunity or a doorway for growth and to leave something behind. So you're opening a door and closing it behind you. They're an acceleration period and they last for 6 months. So we start with the lunar eclipse, which you'll see on the planner here on the 7th of August. And that completes 6 months later down the track in the year.
See the planner, sorry.
What was that?
I can't see the planner. All I can see is welcome to eclipse season.
Yep, I'm just pointing to the planner behind me. I don't have a planner.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So on the 7th is the lunar eclipse, and that concludes with a solar eclipse 6 months down the track. So that whole entire period, whatever you open the door to with this first eclipse, is going to complete 6 months down the track. So approaching eclipses with intention is really what's important here. You're not going to know how the eclipse is going to have its way with you, because they usually do, especially if it's relating to your birth chart in terms of what sign they're in. And you won't know that the impact it's going to have on your business either. So the questions to ask as you're approaching eclipse season or a particular lunar or solar eclipse, what major change or upgrade would you like to welcome in your business? And similarly, what area, activity, or issue would you like to have closure? So when there's an eclipse, when the sun or moon blocks out the light of the sun or moon, there's like a click. There's a moment of darkness. And in that moment of darkness, it's like the key turns in the keyhole and the door opens. So this is can be a very fruitful time, and also bring a lot of challenges too. So in your business, the more you approach your work with intention around eclipse time, the better, because you're going to be more aware of the changes that are afoot and looking for signs to go with the flow and not being too shocked by what might be shaken up. So I also wanted to just bring a bit of attention to the solar eclipse later in the month on the 21st of August. Now, this is a solar eclipse in Leo, and it's a major deal. So I'll share some more in the Facebook group about this later in the month. But basically, eclipses in general, people used to think meant or were portending the death of a king, like a major event, because often major events would happen, society events would happen around eclipse time. So you can imagine a solar eclipse in Leo, what this is going to bring up. So this is a real breakthrough time, a breakthrough month. So just be mindful of that and enter the eclipse periods with intention and link it back to your cycle intention. So whatever your intention is for Leo, which we'll go to in a moment, you can link it back to that because we're in the theme of Leo and creativity. I'll talk about that more in a moment. So this is a month for revolution, because this particular solar eclipse in Leo is about really shaking up the apple cart of authority and rulership and how you're governing your business and what you're being governed by. It's also about sovereignty, really standing in your own power as a leader. So you might get a sense already of what needs to change. So there'll generally be changes in your business in one of 4 areas or several of these areas: marketing, creativity, money, and planning. So for example, one thing I'm really embracing with this Leo energy and the eclipses this month is I want to increase my creativity and the fun and generosity that I have in sharing my creations. This is an upgrade for me. It's not something that really comes naturally to me. I have to push myself to do it. I tend to keep my creations to myself and not share as much as I have to give. But that's also tied up in the fact that I do have a Leo North Node. So if you know anything about North Nodes, if you do have a prominent position of Leo in your chart, Leo rising especially, even Leo moons, you know, your moon represents the past. So it's something that, you know, you've got to watch the shadow of Leo this month. The shadow of Leo being, you know, too egotistical and all eyes on me, look at me, look at me. So this is something that you can really be aware of if you've got any prominent placement of Leo in your chart. Something that I'm leaving behind that I would like closure on is making marketing draining in any way. So because I haven't infused enough fun into my marketing, you know, it has been a bit of a drain. Oh, I have to promote this thing, you know, that kind of attitude. And that's something that I would love to close the door on. So you can see that there's the flip side of what I'm embracing, what I'm closing the door on. And it's all with a Leo theme. All right. Any questions about the eclipse period before we move on? We're going to touch on it again in a moment, but there's lots to percolate on here.
Yeah, I just put one in the chat thing. So this is the end of a 6-month cycle then that began in February if it's a solar one.
No, this is the start of the eclipse season. So the next one will be 6 months down the track.
Okay, but didn't you say that they start with the lunar and finish with the solar 6 months later?
Yes, but they also start with the solar and finish with the lunar. So
how do you know which is the start and which is the finish?
it doesn't really matter. It's just the window of opportunity. So in between is the window of opportunity. So you're going to notice, and I think it's in Aquarius. Is that 6 months away? No, I can't remember which cycle it's in, but there's 2 more eclipses coming up in the same month, and they marry up their partners or pairs with these 2. So if anyone's got their calendar there, you're welcome to chime in which month that is, because I can't remember. Yeah.
So you're saying we've got the effects of 2 different types of eclipses at the same time for the next 6 months?
Yeah, so whatever your intention is to open the door on, so welcome in and close the door on, it's going to take about 6 months for that change, that upgrade to occur. Eclipses are like an acceleration, an upgrade. So
okay,
it doesn't happen.
Starting this cycle is what you're saying.
Correct. So it raises a good point. There's a difference between the Leo, subtle difference between a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse. A lunar eclipse is more emotional and internal change. A solar eclipse is more yang, external. You'll notice more changes in your outer world in relation to people and business. How you're expressing yourself, especially this month with a Leo solar eclipse. Does that help, Jody?
A little bit, but that's... So, in other words, we've got both of them in action for the next 6 months because they're both in Leo.
Mm-hmm. And it is Aquarius, by the way. I just looked it up. So you'll see in Aquarius, there's a solar and a lunar eclipse. These are the partners. And, of course, Aquarius is the partner of Leo as well. So they're 6 months apart. And that's when the door closes on this eclipse period.
Okay.
So it's a transformational time, and so it's good to set your intention with, clarity. Doesn't matter if you don't have clarity on the day, but around that eclipse time, it's really good to get a sense of, okay, so for the next 6 months, what's my upgrade? What am I leaving in the past? Does that help, Jody?
Yeah, sort of, except like you're talking about a lunar is more emotional. The solar was more what?
Yang, outer change.
Yeah. So it's happening everywhere, in other words. It's affecting all areas. It's a double.
Yeah. It's internal and external, so they happen in pairs. The yin yang of the moon and sun. Yes, I believe so. If there is an astrologer in the group who knows otherwise, let me know. But I believe so. They happen in pairs. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries. Okay. So, natural timing. Now, there's got to be some veterans in the group by now who can have their say on what natural timing is. You must have heard me at least 10 times explain my version of natural timing. I'd love to hear yours. Anyone? Come on.
When it feels right.
When it feels right?
Right.
Good. When it feels right. Good. That's a good start. Anything else?
Just really looking at where you are at as well and not trying to rush past a certain process that might need to happen.
Yes.
So every stage has a sort of an incubation period or a time that it needs to establish and grow and you can't rush through to get to that point with ignoring this, because then obviously the foundations of something may not be as strong as they need to be, or, you know, the fruit may come out a little rotten.
Yes.
So to speak.
Well said. Yes, there's a gestation period for any creation, and it is a process that can't be rushed beyond Earth time. We can certainly encourage it and guide it and do what is needed at the time, but we don't necessarily get a say about when the time is ripe. We don't necessarily get to decide that. So this is a very receptive process of tuning in to, well, what is the timing for my creation? What is going to make this fruit of my creation the sweetest? If I pick the apple too early, it's sour. If I pick it too late, it's going rotten. So this is really a process of self-mastery, because if we go into procrastination, then we can miss the opportunity to pick the fruit at the ripe time. And if we go into force, we're going to try and rush the process and get an inferior result. And I have a very great example of this of my own, where I wrote an ebook once and I rushed the process. I was not receptive to timing at all. And I got an inferior result. The book was not fully gestated when it was published. So this, ironically, this book that goes with the Natural Cycle Planner was the first time that I really started to listen to the inherent intelligence of the creation itself. You know, that I was writing the book, but it's not mine. All the information isn't coming from me. It's coming from a much greater force than me. And it's being influenced constantly by the forces around it, the universal interaction. So it's where we need to keep our egos in check and go, okay, so am I really doing this creation service, justice, and elevating it to its full potential? When a creation is ripe, you get the optimal yield. As a farmer would say, they're yielding their crops at the optimal time. They don't wait too long, and they don't harvest is the word I'm trying to think of, harvest too soon. Yes, Priscilla, you've got something to say?
I just keep having this vision of how citrus crops work. If you don't give them enough water, you end up with really dry fruit. So you might get this great big fat orange or a fat lemon or a fat lime or something, but when you actually cut it open, there's nothing in it. So it's almost like if you don't water it with the right nutrients as a part of that creation gestation process, it's not going to have the delivery, it's not going to have the juiciness that the fruit should have, because it's dried up and it's not a case of going too far and being rotten, because that's a different part of the process. This is about nurturing it and watering it and watering the roots properly so that the fruit can grow and actually be fat and juicy. That's the vision I keep having when you talk.
Awesome. So what's the water represent to you?
The right information, the right components, all the things that are going to make it big and solid and fat and you know, so if you're missing an ingredient, you almost have to keep looking for it to ensure that you bring it in as a part of the creation process, and not try and, as you said, rush it out the door before it was ready. You know, it's almost like if there's a missing component, ask for it to come through and be presented so it's easier to see and incorporate into what it is that you're creating.
Yes.
Instead of missing components.
Yes.
So it's like, you know, water, nutrients, you know, whatever fertilizers it needs, whatever ingredients are needed to make a cake or whatever, you know.
Yeah, I actually get the image of a child. When a child, especially a young child, is hungry, they say, "Hey, I'm hungry, Mom." You know, your business is doing the same thing. You've got to be able to attune to the signs. So for a start, knowing when your business is ailing and it's developmentally stagnating, it's because you're not feeding it something. Of course, then you've got to figure out what to feed it. And that's where the strategies come in. But firstly, you've got to know when something's not right, when it's not growing. So, yeah, good one. Thank you, Priscilla.
Natalie, I have a question.
Yeah.
So you talk about knowing when it's ripe and all of that, and the gestation period and the farmer. And, you know, farmers, first of all, there's a tradition, a history. They know what to expect. They also know what the signs are. They're looking for a certain level of growth and so forth. In your experience, when it comes to a creative project, what are the signs you look for to know when it's ripe? Where's your attention going?
It's a good question. So I think the first thing that I am very aware of day to day when I'm working on whatever my creations are is, am I procrastinating? Am I stalling? Am I holding back? Am I in my creative flow? So it'll show up if I'm not, because I will distract myself. I'll get into arguments with my partner, or I'll, you know, create little dramas or just diversions in general when my creative energy is not flowing. So that means straight away to me that I'm not in flow, so I'm not going to be able to tune into ripe timing. So that's where I begin. When I'm in creative flow, and it does help to know your creator type, because each of the natural states have their own way of creative flow. It's not the same for everyone. Once I know I'm in creative flow, the signs that I'm looking for are people asking for this? Is there any demand for this? Are there, like, even the smallest signs, like someone messaging me about something that's mostly unrelated but prompts me to think about what I'm creating, or, oh, hang on, that thing that I was working on, maybe it's coming around again. Maybe the timing is right for me to, you know, start working on that creation again. So the most subtle signs I look for like that. So they're little invitations from the universe. When I get past ripe time, so if I've left it too long, I'll get frustrated straight away. But that's because I'm so attuned to my own creative flow. So I know when it's not flowing, and it's not because sometimes it's because I haven't actually worked on something, but it's also sometimes because I haven't released it yet. So I haven't released the seed. I've been sitting on it. So yeah, I start to get an inner frustration that has become, over the years, a telltale sign. I just know. But in the early days, I didn't really have that kind of attunement to it.
Is there an inner sense that tells you, oh, it's right, it's ripe, now's the time? It's like, you know, oh, I'm pregnant, my water broke, I better get to the hospital now, you know?
Yes.
As opposed to, oh, I waited too long, or I'm futzing around avoiding this, or someone external to me is asking for it.
Yes. So what I've noticed is my ability to know when it's ripe time depends on if I've been in creative flow leading up to that point.
Yeah, assuming you have.
Assuming I have, yes, it's a feeling of, now's the time, I can't sit on this any longer. It's got to be released. It's like the baby's got to come out, as you say. If I leave it any longer, it's going to start to rot.
Okay, so it's like a feeling of urgency, or a need to take action, or something that feels impelled to go out.
Yeah, it's like...
Yeah, that makes sense, that it's the energy to move out rather than just a feeling of, now it all feels balanced and it's humming and it's whatever, something of that nature.
You're right. It's exactly like that. It's actually a feeling of, I've got to release this now.
Got it.
I can't hold on to this anymore. My creative process is done. It's got to change state. People have got to see this now. In other words, it's got to be in the
Yeah.
hands of other people. It needs interaction from other people. I've done my job in my creative vacuum, so to speak.
But basically what I'm hearing is there's an internal pressure to take action.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's very much a release of the seed. Like the energy of it is like an exhale. It's gone. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question. I haven't, you can probably tell I haven't had to answer that exactly before, so I'm thinking on the spot. I hope that helped. Yeah, cool. All right, so natural timing tip for the month. I know we have some superstars in the group who are pretty bloody amazing in my eyes. Jody, Jillian and Lucilla, who did their natural timing tip last month, Belly on the Earth, very, very diligently. Loved your photos and videos. Keep it coming because you'll inspire others. This month, the tip of the month is the barefoot walkabout. Now, we have an earthing guru in the group. That's Jody. She knows all about earthing as she sells earthing products and the benefits of having your bare skin on the earth. Now, and even when you're sleeping, and that's where the products come in, is making sure that you have that electrical charge coming through your body from the earth.
Why do you have to pick deep winter for this shit?
Well, I've discovered something called earthing moccasins, Lucilla. So
okay.
if you live in a cold climate, you can wear moccasins, which are made from, deer hide or kangaroo skin, whatever it is. And that energy, the Earth's electrical frequency,
goes through.
It conducts through the skin. So it's like a second skin, really, which you can wear in winter outside. So, yes, sorry about all you Victorians.
I know, yeah, up north is easier for sure.
But, it's just as important no matter where you live to have that bare skin contact with the earth. You can try earthing products if you're mostly inside. But, the purpose here is not just the barefoot aspect, but also the walkabout. This is an ancient practice of Australian Aboriginals, where they would go on, and I'm sure other Indigenous people as well, where they would go on walkabouts just in nature for several days alone, and they would come back with all these insights that they'd received from just being in solitude with nature, with the animals, and absorbing the messages and really tuning in to their own intuitive center. So I highly recommend this process. It's something that I do regularly. I will just ditch all the electronics and go and just walk, shoes off and walk. And I don't know how long it will be. I'm not saying you have to go on a pilgrimage for days, but even a few hours, just walking into nature and seeing how it transforms you. Because the purpose of these tips is to get us in tune with natural timing, attuned with the earth and the cycles of the earth and the signs of the earth. So it takes development. It's not something that we're trained to do, that we're brought up with in our culture. We're having to learn this. And so I want to give you these tips so that you have something practical to do each month to integrate it into your lives. So the barefoot walkabout, I'd love to hear how this one goes and any inventive approaches you come up with, you Victorians. I'm sure you will. And by the way, and Jody can speak more on this if you're wondering more about earthing, from what I know, socks, like cotton socks, will still conduct the EMF frequency of the earth. So you can go outside with socks on or socks inside your moccasins and you'll still get some electrical impulse. Jody, do you want to add any wisdom to that? I've only given a very brief snippet. Any ideas you have off the top of your head?
Yeah, a little bit. The cotton socks is a good idea because you're still secreting sweat from your feet in particular, and so the cotton allows the sweat to go through, to pass through naturally. I was thinking about you spoke about the moccasins earlier. So obviously they don't have a sole other than the animal skin. So they're like a leather kind of thing, but the leather's going to get wet, and down here that's going to be just as cold and wet and whatever on your feet.
That's true.
Would they walking barefoot? So,
oh, hang on. There is a solution to that. So even though it's cold, but it's at least dry. You can walk on concrete. Concrete will still conduct EMF. So you're talking about walking on dew, are you, Jodie? Like dew on the grass?
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if we go into nature here, it's very soggy. We've just had a downpour. It's quite muddy, which sounds sort of nicer than walking on hard because my delicate feet, though I do a lot of barefoot stuff, not so much just with sticks and stones underneath them.
Yep.
But, I like the challenge, and I think it's important to, step up and we'll see.
Well, just remember because I hear you with the hard ground, I don't like that either. If you do have moccasins or socks on, you can still just sit in a chair and have your feet on the concrete or on the tiles, as long as there's nothing insulating in between, and you'll still get that frequency come through. So,
and I've tested that on tiles, the tiles inside my home with the voltmeter, and it has actually, when you connect it to an earthing product, versus it's probably 50% of what an earthing product gives you, but on tiles and concrete. But you've got to watch out for the plastic that's under it, and the insulating properties and what they put underneath the tiles and stuff. So the only way to know for sure is actually to use a voltmeter to test your body voltage to see how low it goes as close to.
But it's good to know you can use concrete, because I've often wondered about that. I've been laying my body on the earth on concrete because it's been too wet and soggy otherwise. Which is a practice I'm still doing.
Cool.
At the rising sun, but not in this weather. It's just actually pissing down the rain.
Well, if it's far too hard for you to go barefoot or get that EMF frequency, you can just go walkabout and hug a tree instead, because just hand on a tree will do the same thing. So there's lots of workarounds.
I'm thinking a corroboree in my backyard is all right.
Oh, cool. I'm there.
Yeah. I actually think that Leo should have been about fire, and we should be having campfires instead. So maybe, Lucilla, we can get a campfire going in the backyard and do the barefoot walkabout at the same time.
Woo-hoo. Yeah, awesome. I love it.
Well, one thing about you keep mentioning EMF. Electrons is a better word to use. It's electrons, because EMF, of course, has that connotation of, for the hypersensitive and the supersensitive, the EMF, EMR, radiation, and the stuff that's coming from our phones and our high, all the high voltage stuff, all our electrical products and stuff. So I just talk about it as healing electrons, or the negative electrons from the earth, in opposition to our positive voltage in our.
But it is still EMF, isn't it? There's a magnetic frequency. It's just people are thinking it's negative because of phones, etc. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So it is an electromagnetic frequency. It's just these days people talk about EMFs as a bad thing.
Yeah.
EMFs, EMR,
As usual, everything's healthy in moderate doses, and the doses that nature intended, not the doses that humans design. Good point. Cool. All right. So let's do a review from last cycle. So if you get your previous cycle calendar for Cancer, you want to make sure that you're ticking off the actions you completed and crossing off the ones that no longer apply or carrying over the ones that do. Pretty simple. You're all au fait with that now, I think. So this is just really important to close off the last cycle, and that last cycle ended almost a week ago. So we're very much in Leo now. So here we are, this cycle. It's a pretty dramatic one because we not only have 2 eclipses, we also have Mercury retrograde. Woohoo! So any of you who are into that or notice changes around Mercury retrograde with just little hiccups with technology, communications, that kind of thing, something to be aware of. This is where the R on the calendar comes in.
We have 2 new moons in Leo.
Yeah, we do also have 2 new moons. And in fact, speaking of new moons, Linda is going to share with us a little practice she does on the new moon each month. Linda, do you want to chime in?
Sure. Nat asked me to just outline what I do. It's really simple. I basically sit down in the middle of my space and ask anything that's not me or of this world. So however you like to classify spirit, my day is just a collect spiritual good to give me a focus for the month. I've been doing it for about 5 months now, so it's still new. And what I feel like it is Spirit's chance to gently guide me. For example, the first word that I got was wholesome. And I don't really think about wholesome. It's not a word I really relate to. So each month it seems to be a word that I'm not really familiar with, and I'm getting re-familiar with it, such as harmony, authenticity, kindness. All of these things are being reviewed, and I feel like they're little gifts from Spirit to get me to change slowly and gracefully and to get onto a different track. So that's probably the size of it. So I just sit there, and if a word comes into my head, it's the first word that comes in. I try not to think it. I try to go, okay, it comes quickly sometimes, most times, and if not, I just sit there until something does come into my head. So I'm happy to expand on that.
Yeah, this is, you did cut out a little bit, Linda, so I'll just paraphrase what you said. So Linda sits on each new moon and receives a word of intention from Spirit. And that word then kind of carries throughout the month. So I just thought it was a lovely process to give a little bit of focus and also be receptive to a higher force, a higher guidance that is coming through probably the moon. Who knows? Maybe that's where your words are coming from, Linda, the moon itself.
Yeah, maybe. I definitely feel like it's changing how I'm living, and it's also, I definitely feel like I'm in more partnership now than being alone. And I love the fact that it's one word and that it's my time to take a whole month to kind of look at that and see what I feel about it and what it means to me, and just get to know it better. So it's a lovely process. I hope you heard.
Yes. Lucilla is saying, sounds like a lovely practice, Linda. I'll be trying that out. Awesome. Me too. I'm going to take a leaf out of Linda's book here as well. And I think especially, well, we've already had our first moon of this month, but there is another one coming, and it happens to be an eclipse. So let's see what yields from that. Okay. Thank you, Linda, for sharing that with us.
I did do a new moon practice for 2 years, and it was basically, I have this notebook. This is my new moon notebook, and every new moon I would write down the qualities that were associated with that sign and set intentions related to embodying those qualities. And I did it in a sort of ritualistic fashion within a certain time period. And I don't know if it really had any effects. I just really liked doing it in that very purposeful way. But I see in my book, the last time I entered this was exactly a year ago. So,
All right, exactly, huh?
All
So,
of that.
I did
It's funny that a year comes up.
Yeah, no, I did actually new moon in Leo, August 2nd, 2016.
oh, wow. I'm sure that means something.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing, like it's not so much always about, okay, well, this is what it changed in my business or my life. Sometimes it's just about communing with the elements, with nature, and just being with nature and, you know, feeling that connection. So that can have quite a transformative effect. And it sounds like, Linda's, you've already experienced that. So Lucilla, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I've got, I hope you can hear me. I just had I'm putting my words into like a summary page, and I've called it The Journey of 13 Moons. So I'm planning to do it for a year. And I feel like I've got that kind of agreement with Spirit on this. And then I may keep going or I might not. It sort of came up organically. And I chose one word because there's so much to do and I didn't want more to do. So I just like, if I just have a word and I just have to kind of ponder on it a bit, then life's good. You know, it's not too hard.
Yeah. I love it. No more to do, just ponder. That's perfect. Cool. Thank you. All right, let's move on to some things we do have to do for Leo, starting with the cycle intention. So really getting clear on what this cycle of creativity is about for you. Where do you want to focus? Leo is very much about being the storyteller. It's the fun sign. It's the one that's always playing around. It's the inner child. So Leo loves to take a creative risk. They love to like put themselves out there in a new way. So you might want to be exploring, especially if you do have Leo in a prominent position in your chart, exploring how you're going to express more creativity in your work. It's also about generosity. So you can see my cycle intention here is to create from free-flowing service and share my creations with fun and generosity. So this is something that's really going to stretch me, and that's what your cycle intention is designed to do. So what stretch do you need in the area of Leo in relation to your creativity? It could be being more discerning about what you're creating too, because some people are prolifically creative and they create so much, but perhaps they're not really making an impact with those creations because there's too much. Or, of course, as you've seen from my example, not sharing my creations enough, not really taking a risk. And for those of you who were on the How to Know What Your Business Needs to Grow call last night or last week, I began that with a story. That was very deliberate because Leo loves to tell stories because they are speaking to the inner child. You want to tantalize the inner child this month, your own as well as other people's. When you're sharing your creations, speak to that in them. Don't be all adult and formal and professional. Be fun and alluring and, you know, just wear your heart on your sleeve a bit. So in terms of actions, for me, what this means is I'm pretty excited about this. Tomo and I are doing a DAO launch party. So, you know, we've got, for those of you who don't know, DAO is our True Abundance Oasis learning community. And we have a new intake of members coming up in September. But instead of doing a traditional boring launch with lots of copy and all that jazz, we thought, well, let's make it a party. We're going to do something quite different that we haven't done before. So that's just an example of how you can make it different and fun. Do not be boring this month. Do not do the same thing in how you promote your creations, how you share them. I'm also launching, for those of you who know Sovereign Business, Sarah K. Jones and I are working together again. So we are launching a new program starting this month, all going to plan. Who knows with the eclipses, but We'll see. It can be a little bit challenging to plan concrete things in an eclipse month, because you will usually experience some unexpected things happen, or unexpected changes of direction. So just be on your toes for that this month. I'm also offering a service smorgasbord, which is a range of different creations. That's in line with my cycle intention to share more of my creations. And one of those is an e-course as well. So you can see there's a real emphasis on, putting my stuff out there. So just think about ways you can be more generous this month with what you have to give. Use your lion heart and share it with others. Does anyone have any questions about Leo before we look at timing for the month? Okay.
Natalie.
Yeah.
Nat,
Yeah.
What's the dark side of Leo, please?
The dark
Other
side.
than ego.
Okay, so the dark side of Leo, well, it is very much about ego. So as I mentioned before, like with the solar eclipse this month, where the light of the sun is being blocked by shadow. Can you imagine blocking a Leo's sun? That's the Leo's planet, is the sun. So the sun is being blocked out. You do not want to do that to a Leo. That's why it's going to shake things up. So if you got Leo prominent in your chart, it's going to really push you in that regard. So the shadow of Leo is being center of attention too much, taking attention away from other people and hogging the limelight. And the tendency is to make their creations about themselves and look what I've created, but they're not necessarily in tune with what people want from them, because they're caught up in their own sunny vortex, if you like. So that's what I would sort of say is the main shadow aspect. Were you thinking something else, Jill? Or did you have an example?
No, I just actually wanted the awareness. I actually don't have any Leo, but I do have several Leo siblings, and I'm returning to my hometown, and my sister is born on the 9th. So I just wanted some awareness, because I tend to find that because I actually don't have a lot of other signs in mine, I then don't know a lot about the other signs when they turn up in my face.
Yep.
So it's good to know the dark side, so I can actually have that awareness with that.
Good. And, this goes for your clients as well. Anyone in your life, you want to catch them out, especially if they're being triggered by this Leo energy this month. Because another shadow aspect of Leo is drama, being a drama queen. Oh my God, this has happened. And then sucking everyone else into their drama. So yeah, it's pretty funny if you watch from a detached perspective, but if you're getting sucked in unwittingly, it's not that fun, because it's actually not about you and it's unnecessary. So it's all about getting that attention back on them. So just something to look out for. It's a good one. Cool. All right. So timing wise this month. So as we know, when we get to actually planning out these actions, so if you've written out your actions for the month, the first step is you want to cross off your days off for the month. Days you're not working that are off the cards, birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, anything like that. Cross them out. Then you know how many days or moons you have to work with for the month. The next step is to look at the full and new moons. So we're building to the full moon now. And this is also an eclipse. So this is more prominent than most full moons. It's in Aquarius. And so this is a full moon that's going to trigger you emotionally, mainly around relationships and interacting in your communities. It will trigger change in those areas. So when you're planning out your month, you want to be mindful of these full and new moons and the eclipses and the retrograde, of course, because you want to make sure that you're not launching anything major on an eclipse. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that unless you're going for something that is really revolutionary and a shake-up for people. If you are launching something, you can wait a little bit after the eclipse, after the dust has settled, not when people are peaking and going nuts. So this window here between the full moon and the new moon is your window of opportunity to get lots done. The crescendo is leading up to this full moon. So think about what you're creating that's going to be released after that full moon. And then, you know, what are you going to optimize in this period, in this space, this window of opportunity here between the full moon and the new moon? So I have put a couple of numbers. So when I'm doing mine, this is for the newbies. When I'm doing my planning for the month, I just put the numbers because the actions are numbered on here. I put those numbers on the days that they pertain to. Sometimes not all of the actions are specific to a particular day, so they don't necessarily need a number, or sometimes they're for a time period, so I'll actually write numbers on all those relevant days. So this is just a guide for you this month to look at timing for your creations. When are you going to optimize or leverage this energy so that you can create in a very generous, free-flowing way, sharing with people this month, wearing your heart on your sleeve? Does anyone have any questions about the cycle this month with the timings? When we get closer to the eclipses, you'll get more of a sense of what you want to upgrade and what you want to close the door on. If you don't know now, that's okay.
Can I just ask, from the full moon to the new moon, I was a bit busy and my head was slightly somewhere else. And what's the best thing to be working on there? Working out what you're offering. I didn't really listen to what you said.
Yep.
Or I didn't hear what you said properly.
So after the full moon each month is a window of opportunity because the crescendo has happened leading up to the full moon. It's almost like a seed being released in a way. Right. So this is like completion of the projects is really what a full moon represents. Yeah. Yeah. So when you're completing, well, after that, you're kind of releasing what you've completed. You're putting it out there in whatever way, you know. It doesn't have to be major launches. It can just be little changes that you're making in your business that you've been working on leading up to the full moon.
Get the fucking videos out there. Excuse the French, but finish the videos by the full moon. Shift them out, girl. Shift them out.
Yep. Well, what would a Leo do is the question to ask. Well, a Leo would not sit on their creations. They'd be like, hang on, if I sit on this, I'm like losing out on accolades here, you know? What's that about?
Yeah, but also for me to finally finish them in that period with a lot of fun, with a lot of, you know, that childlikeness that is so important that I imbued that anyway, because that's how I'm like in my class, what I want to put into my video. So it's just perfect.
Perfect. If you're doing videos this month, making them fun is a very good move.
Yeah.
Don't bore people this month. And, you know, it's a real art to tell stories and to speak to the inner child. It takes practice.
Natalie, don't bore people any month.
No, probably, yeah, well, that's right. But especially not this month. Well, no, hang on. Some months you can bore people because they're about consistency. So you do actually have to create consistency some months. It's not all about buzz every single month of the year. Because if you made every month about buzz, then people would get bored by all the buzz, right? So there is a different, like next month, for example, when we go into Virgo, it's all about organization. It's consistency, man. It's not anything like this. So that's why we love a bit of variety and balance across all the signs.
I do have to just say, like, working with this through this process, and I sort of thought at the beginning of the year, or when I made my decision to become, work towards a nomadic life, which is what I'm in the process of doing. I thought, well, I don't really know how this is going to work for me, as I'm not really just focusing so much in that business way, in that more formal sort of business way. But everything is just like, oh, that will be perfect. That's exactly the energy I need. That is exactly what I need to focus on. It's great. So I'm really enjoying, as I'm shifting and finding that actually the energy is going to support me along the way. It's great.
Yes, I love it. There is a divine plan, and believe it or not, we're all part of it. And yeah, there's just a greater energy and force of creation that's at play here. Oh, yeah. So it's just not a coincidence when things work out. We're just actually waking up to, oh my God, that does line up. So, and doing it more consciously. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, Lucilla. That's really good.
Thank you, Natalie, for leading the way, leading the process.
Yeah. Yes, me and Mother Earth, we're a good team. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to briefly, most of you have seen these programs, so I just wanted to plant the seed about receiving support. If you want more personalized support with implementing this process in your business and getting really clear on what your plan is for the full year with milestones, if you'd like that extra support, there are two options here. We can work together over a full year, meeting every 6 weeks to make sure you stay on track with your plan. And there's also the seed program, which is really for people who are still designing their business and at the identity stage of figuring out what it is that their soul work is. So that's available for you all if you need it. And other than that, please share this around. Please share about the natural cycles. I've created a hashtag even that you can use whenever you're posting anything about, even natural timing in a non-business context. It's all related. So I would love if you do share this with your friends and tell them about what you're doing in your business, how you're doing things a bit differently, because a lot of people, I'm realizing, are struggling doing it the mainstream way, and they don't need to be struggling, because look what we've created here. We all get it. So just keep that in mind when you're chatting to people. Is this person really suited to that very intellectual, analytical way of planning in business, or would they be better suited to something a bit different? And that is my Leo Limelight complete for today. Thanks everyone for coming.